Hello everyone, it's Gus from Askewed Reviews. Now, this is actually going to be a new series I'm starting called Let's Discuss. This is basically a forum or an opportunity to, number one, talk about every spoiler possible, number two, bitch and moan if I feel like it, and number three, potentially get some common ground with all of you out there when it comes to our feelings about movies. So if you saw my previous video, I did a review for Scream 7. But for today, let's do an episode of Let's Discuss Scream 7. So first off, let's talk legacy characters. I was so happy to see that we had Neve Campbell come back as the character of Sydney, and honestly, she did not miss a step. She was great. She was very much that character. I also really liked the fact that we brought back Courtney Cox as Gale Weathers. However, though, I'm not happy about the fact that she was very much wasted in this film. There was a very cool entrance for her when she ran over the first potential ghost face, but then she kind of just fell to the background. She had a couple of good moments, but then she just disappeared. And there were definitely some moments that I felt could have been good having her around for. Now, obviously, let's also discuss the elephant in the room. Speaking of legacy characters, from the past two films, we had both Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega, who did a great job. But because Melissa had an opinion, she was kicked out from being in the series anymore, which is absolutely ridiculous. I would have loved to have seen these characters also get to meet Neve Campbell's Sydney, but that didn't happen. A new character that I actually did really like was Isabel May's Tatum. Tatum was great. I loved her addition to this. I loved her performance. No complaints there. Now let's talk about some of these other characters. First of all, both Jessica and Marco I'll talk about later. First of all, I want to mention Mark Evans, played by Joel McHale. I don't think he did a bad job, but come on. He was supposed to be Patrick Dempsey's character. I 100% believe that. And then they changed it because he does have a different last name. I think it was Kincaid in that third film, but this is Mark Evans, so it is supposed to be a different character, but they're both police officers. And I don't know, it just felt strange and weird. Now, briefly, let's talk about some other legacy characters. Mindy and Chad come back, which I was totally fine with. I liked their appearance, I thought they did a good job, but I also kind of just nothinged their characters. Like, I could have been fine if they were in or if they weren't. Now, let's talk about this row right above me here. They were some good new additions, but we really didn't get to know any of them. And the problem I had with that is that all of them were kind of set up to be potentials of Ghostfaces or partners of Ghostface. And once again, I could have been fine if they were or weren't in the movie. I felt a little bad that Hannah, of course, was taken out very quickly, but it was a very gory scene, which is one thing I did really like about this movie, a lot more gore. Even though you could tell it was CGI at times, I enjoyed that they went really bloody with this one. Oh, in case you're wondering, the two characters that I'm kind of standing in front of, they're just random characters that were potentials to throw you off of, ooh, who could be Ghostface? Speaking of potential ghost faces, I do like that in this film they really throw you off the scent quite a few times, and there are a lot of potentials and possibilities. That does unfortunately bring me to the thing I hated about this movie, and that would be the characters that ended up being the ghost faced killers. This was such a bad decision. So bad. Because, first of all, if you bring in Anna Camp and Ethan Embry, I feel like they're recognizable enough that you're going to be like, well, they probably have some amount of story here. So we have our primary ghost face, who is Anna Camp's character, Jessica. And I guess they were just like, what if a Karen was Ghostface? Like, her understanding or her motive is just terrible. She read Sydney's book. She's clearly not all there. Like, she was at one point in an institution, but she's just crazy and she's decided that she's going to focus that crazy at Sydney. In fact, so much so that she takes out her own son. And then she apparently had a booty call with Marco here in the actual institution that she went to, and now they're in love or whatever. This was so bad. And I'll be honest, the thing that bothered me the most about this reveal is that it didn't feel like a Scream movie. I felt like I was watching Scary Movie. Like, that's how silly this seemed to be. Because I can't take Anna Camp and Ethan Embry serious in these roles. Like, they don't come off as killers. Now, here's one thing I do want to say when it comes to the Ghostface killers. I actually really enjoyed the whole AI aspect that they added into this film, especially that sequence where they're showing a few different people. You had Stu briefly, you had Debbie, you had Roman. They even threw in Dewey for a moment. That was really cool. But there was a glaring omission to that quick little video. They didn't put Billy in there. I don't know why they didn't do that. I'm sure Skeet Ulrich would have been willing to do it, but it seemed like such a waste as that's what was the catalyst or the beginning thing of what Sydney had to deal with is her own boyfriend turning on her. I will say I had zero issues with any of the killers from the fifth and sixth movie showing up in that video because Sydney had no experience with them. I also am totally fine with Charlie and Jill not making an appearance because they were not great options and I just don't feel like they would have mattered. Mickey, by the way, I would have been okay with him showing up, but he kind of didn't need to be there because Debbie really felt like the mastermind and he just felt like the weapon in that movie, at least in my opinion. The last thing I'm going to talk about with this is a segment that with these I'm probably going to call WIWHD, or what I would have done, because I'm opinionated and I can't help it. So, aside from really changing almost everything, to make a smaller change that I feel would have been more effective, first of all, recast both of these characters. Give an actor an actress that maybe haven't seen much screen time or are a bit more serious. And then maybe with the character of Jessica, especially, let's give her a little bit more background. Maybe Sydney and Jessica kind of met while going to a group that's about people who have been through abuse or some type of situation like that. So we see that okay, there's a connection between these two. But instead of her just being a fan and reading this, here's my idea. Jessica, around the same time that Sydney had her original thing with Ghostface, back when she was like a teenager, let's say she was in a different state that also had an issue with a serial killer. Her family was taken out. She's the only survivor. And yet, because they happened around the same time and Ghostface became more well known, she kind of got forgotten about. So no one really talks about her situation. And at first, it's maddening in the sense of no one seems to care as much about her family, but then in the no one seems to care about me. So that causes her to focus all of that energy towards Sydney. And then she gets that weird idea that, you know, if I become the next Ghostface and I take her out, and then people find out, I'm going to be the person that they all talk about. So I realize similar to the situation in four, but I think it would have just been better than what they did here. So this has been my episode of Let's Discuss Scream 7. Do you agree with my opinions? If not, let me know what your opinions are.